Isn't it cute, this bag? That bag she showed off was a well-known luxury brand. I thought she couldn't afford such an expensive bag. To my shock, she said she stole it from the safe of my recently deceased father's house. However, the money she took was for something concerning her. The mother-in-law who wasted $30,000 on a brand-name bag was left alone and faced a sad old age. My name is Mary, and I'm 39 years old. I live with my husband, Jason, who is 2 years older than me, and our son, Brian, who is in the 5th grade of elementary school. We were living in an apartment until 3 years ago, but after my father-in-law passed away, we began living with my mother-in-law. Originally, at that time, the family home was supposed to be sold, and she was going to move into a senior residence. However, she expressed a desire to live with her son's family, even if only for a few years. It would be too lonely to live by myself without being able to live with Jason and the family. Hence, for her sake, my husband decided to live together, setting a time frame of 3 years. What surprised us after moving in was my mother-in-law's attitude towards money, or rather, we were stunned by how reckless she spent it. Despite being a housewife, she never managed the household expenses. She spent all the money she had immediately, so it was my father-in-law who managed the household's finances. Of course, she was never allowed to have a credit card, probably because if she had one, it was obvious she would max it out. Her daily life revolved around doing house chores with the groceries and items that her husband bought. He would give her an allowance, but she would spend it immediately. So instead of giving it to her once a month, he would give it weekly. My husband, who knew about this system from his father, decided to continue it. The responsibility of managing the household finances was given to me. My mother-in-law, who had previously been in charge of my father-in-law's living expenses, could not say anything too strongly. But now that her daughter-in-law was in charge of the living expenses, she became more aggressive. "Mary, you work part-time, right? It must be tough managing work and household chores. Let me at least do the shopping." It was obvious what she was up to, so I gently declined. "No, I'll do the shopping on my way back from work. Thank you for your concern." "Oh, so you're just going to ignore my goodwill? Then I won't help with the chores at all. You handle everything." And then she said, "By the way, I'd prefer the allowance once a month, not weekly." It was clear she would spend it all right away. So I asked, "Can I discuss with Jason first? There's no need to bother him for such a small matter. What do you all think of me? It's just an allowance." She didn't listen to me, so I ended up changing my allowance to once a month. She wanders around every day without doing any housework. At the beginning of the month, she always brought paper bags with her when she came home from shopping somewhere. By mid-month, she would come back empty-handed. I figured she'd spend all her allowance. I immediately got an idea. However, after a few days, she would return with shopping bags again. Was she getting money from somewhere else? I confronted my husband with my suspicions. "Have you been giving your mother more money?" With a guilty expression, he said, "She told me she really needed money, so I gave her little from my allowance." "You know that's not good for her, right?" "I know, but she probably wants to shop to distract herself from the loneliness of losing Dad. We moved here to help her cope with that. Relying on money is not the solution. I think we should stop giving money to her from now on," I said firmly, but my husband looked reluctant. It seems like he doesn't intend to stop giving money to his mother. For 3 years, she had been leading an indescribable life. Our temporary living arrangement with the mother-in-law was coming to an end. For these 3 years, my husband had been giving her pocket money as she demanded. I wonder if she'll be okay starting to live on her own. We were approaching the time when we had to start the paperwork for her new residence, but then I received news that my father had collapsed. Currently, he lives alone in an apartment. My mother passed away when I was little, so he raised me on his own. Hearing that he had fallen, I rushed to the hospital. The diagnosis was cancer. It had already spread throughout his body, and there was nothing to be done. He had 3 months left. He wasn't interested in life-prolonging treatment and wished to spend his remaining days at home with palliative care. I want you to live even a little longer, Dad. I want you to see Brian grow up. Don't worry about the money. Please get the treatment. I begged him repeatedly, but no matter how much I pleaded, his decision remained unchanged. I have no regrets in my life. I've raised you, Mary, and I feel accomplished. Now I want to prepare to peacefully depart to join your mother. With that, he was discharged from the hospital and arranged for home nursing on his own. Eventually, I respected my father's wishes and visited him as often as possible with my son Brian. Knowing his grandfather's time was limited, Brian started taking many photos with him. I would use my smartphone to capture these moments, print them, and show them to my father. These snapshots of our daily lives grew into not just one album, but 2, then 3. My father would look through these albums every day. He said he wanted some of the photos to be placed in his coffin, but this peaceful life came to a sudden end. One day, after my part-time job, I received a phone call. It was from the hospital in charge of home care. My father's condition had deteriorated, and he had to be hospitalized. When I arrived, I could tell his end was near. I contacted my husband, asking him to bring Brian, and while waiting, I held my father's hand, praying he'd hang on. He did, passing away just as my husband and Brian arrived. Brian bursted into tears. My husband was in shock. As for me, I tried to hold back, but a tear rolled down. With my father's departure still fresh in our hearts, we immediately began the funeral preparations. My husband actively helped with my father's funeral preparations. Having faced the challenging experience of his own father's passing 3 years prior, we were able to apply those lessons to smoothly prepare for my father's funeral. Although my father didn't want a big funeral, many people who were grateful to him during his lifetime reached out, and both the wake and the funeral were well attended. I felt proud of my father. Although aware of our busy situation, my mother-in-law seemed to be enjoying her days following my father's death. After the funeral and the following memorial ceremonies, things finally started to calm down. Having been away from home for a while, my husband's family home was in disarray. Despite my mother-in-law being at home, it was clear that she hadn't done any housework. However, one corner of the living room was strangely tidy. There, even someone like me, with no interest in luxury brands, could instantly recognize several high-end brand bags. They weren't mine, of course. So they belonged to my mother-in-law, but I hadn't given her enough money to afford such luxury. Just as I was about to ask her about it, she returned home. Upon noticing me eyeing the bags, my mother-in-law said, "Aren't they lovely? I've wanted them for so long," she said gleefully. But what I really wanted to know was where she got the money for these bags. Excuse me, while the bags are indeed wonderful, where did you get the money? I don't believe I've given you nearly enough to afford them. Then With a sly grin, she responded, "I had some unexpected income." Unexpected income? It was impossible for my mother-in-law to have such a source of income. Please be honest. Where did this unexpected income come from? I pressed her firmly. I found it when I went to your father's apartment. There was $30,000 in cash in a safe there. That's the money you're inheriting, right? I thought it's okay for mother-in-law to use her daughter-in-law's money. After all, you weren't really filial to your own father, right? So I figured I'd use the $30,000 on your behalf. Did you spend all the money? Yes, I spent it all in a blink of an eye, she replied with excitement, apparently not noticing my tone growing colder. Do you understand what that $30,000 was for? Even when I asked this, she laughed and replied, "It's the money you're inheriting from your father, but $30,000 is a rather small inheritance." I told her the truth. That money was the entrance fee for your senior citizen's apartment. What? With an incredulous expression, the mother-in-law looks at me. What do you mean? Why? Why was that money in your father's room? The mother-in-law started to panic. First of all, it's all your fault. You just spend money without thinking. Your late husband left a significant inheritance, and I don't know what you spent it on. But in the end, only this $30,000 remained. We hid it once we realized, and yet you dared to use it. Finally understanding the gravity of the situation, the mother-in-law said, "Wait a minute. So without that $30,000, where am I supposed to live? I can't continue living here with you, can I?" I answer calmly, "No, you can't. This house was deteriorated a lot. Simple renovations won't fix it." "Then what will you do with this house? Where will you and Jason live?" "We will demolish this house and sell the land. This house is in Jason's name. If he decides to do so, you have no say in it." "Then where are you two going to live?" "We've already bought our own home, so we'll be moving there." "You won't take me with you?" I was prepared for this. "We can't live with you anymore. You have debts, don't you? We will not help you pay them off." She looked startled, probably not expecting that I knew about her debts. "What? How do you know about my debts?" "We saw the reminders for payment, about $20,000 in total, right?" Her face grew pale. "Did you think we would repay it for you? Both Jason and I are tired of your reckless spending. We've decided to cut ties with you. We just wanted to help you move to the senior citizen's apartment. We are truly disappointed in you." As I said this, the mother-in-law collapsed to her knees. When my husband returned home, she immediately cried to him, but he already knew of her actions and offered no sympathy. Even Brian, our 5th grade son, had distanced himself from her, but he's on the 5th grade. He had been disliking her for a while and fully understood the situation. There was zero chance that Brian would side with his grandmother. The mother-in-law, abandoned by her son and grandson, had nothing left but the brand name bags she bought for $30,000, shining brightly. While we were busy, our new home was completed and the moving date was approaching. My mother-in-law has not yet decided where she will live. The date to demolish the old family home hasn't been set, but it's decided that it will be torn down and sold soon. Before that, we need to get my mother-in-law to move out, but she doesn't seem to have any intention of doing so. Moreover, seeing us packing, she began packing her belongings as well. I spoke to my mother-in-law. "There's no room for you in our new house. We have no intention of living with you. Please find a place to live on your own." My mother-in-law responded, "What do you think of me? You're saying there's no room for me? Just give me your room. Take me to the new house," she said arrogantly. No matter how grandly she speaks, it won't change our minds. Did you think yelling would change our feelings? Maybe you should think about your debts. You've been receiving a lot of collection notices, right? If debt collectors come to this house, we'll leave immediately. My mother-in-law always falls silent when her debt is brought up. We think that if she sells the luxury bag she bought for $30,000, she could repay her $20,000 debt, but she won't. Her actions are mysterious. Eventually, my husband decided to rent an apartment for her. It's not a senior residence, but a cheap, cramped, run-down apartment. My husband moved her belongings there, forcing her to live there. How can you make your mother live in such a place? What kind of son are you? At the start of her move, she was quickly reprimanded by the landlord for being too noisy. Her reckless spending didn't change. When her pension came in, she'd spend 2 months' worth in about a week. She would borrow money for living expenses, and when that runs out, borrow again. Her debt snowballed to $30,000. At this rate, she might be evicted from the apartment. To avoid her debt problems affecting us, my husband formally cut ties with her. We didn't share a new address with her and changed our phone number. I once asked my husband, "Are you okay with what happened to your mother?" He firmly replied, "Someone who thinks they can just use your inheritance and casually spend $30,000 is not a parent to me." He had no regrets. Later, my mother-in-law finally sold her luxury bag and managed to repay some of her debt. Though she receives a pension, she had to start working to repay her debt and for living expenses. Working was a new world for her, who had been a housewife most of her life. We heard she's being yelled at by young supervisors daily, but continues to work for money. As for us, we began our new life in our new home as planned. Our son Brian is delighted every day in our new beautiful house. The old family home was sold without issues after being demolished. We plan to save the money from the sale for Brian's education. After enduring 3 years living with my mother-in-law, we hope for a peaceful life as a family of 3.
I bought a house to live with my parents and my sister. If you don't want to, we can get a divorce.
Are you sure? You might regret it.
Jay, right. LOL.
Tom shrugged while laughing. A month later, Tom experienced hell. My name is Emily, a 40-year-old office worker. I live with my husband, Tom, and our 8-year-old daughter. As husband and wife, we had a pretty good relationship. We would talk about well-being of our daughter. On weekends we would go out together, and we'll always have dinner together, talking and laughing. We both work, so our income is pretty stable and we don't have much to worry about regarding our future. We were living a happy life when one day something happened and changed everything.
Wait, what?
Suddenly, I received a call from the hospital while at work. They informed me that my mother had fell ill. I left work early and rushed to the hospital.
Mom.
Aunt Emily, you came.
My mother was lying the hospital bed. She had fallen suddenly ill, but thanks to emergency treatment, her condition seemed to have stabilized.
You surprised me with the sudden news. Are you okay?
I'm sorry.
My 70-year-old mother lives alone in our family home. My father passed away a few years ago, so I was worried about her being alone. And now this happened. Moreover, it appears she will be hospitalized for a while.
Is it a serious illness?
No, I just need to get tested. I suddenly fainted, so they want to monitor me and slowly proceed with the examinations.
I see.
It's probably safer for her to be in the hospital than alone at home, as she can get immediate assistance if something happens. I returned home.
Is your mom okay?
For now, yes. But she'll be hospitalized for a while.
I see.
When I got home, my husband had prepared dinner and was waiting for me with my daughter. Tom had intended to leave work early to come to the hospital, but I had informed him that it wasn't necessary since my mother's condition was stable when I arrived. During dinner, I spilled what was on my mind.
I'm thinking of asking my mom to come live with us when she's out of the hospital. What do you think?
This wasn't a decision I could make alone. I needed to hear Tom's opinion on the matter. I was surprised to hear Tom agree with me without hesitation.
I'm totally fine with it. Being alone at an old age must be lonely, and I can see this incident made you worry more. Let's support your mother together.
Oh, Tom.
I was so happy to hear my husband say that. I felt fortunate to have a dependable husband like him during such times. Our daughter, hearing Tom's words, commented, "Daddy is so cool." I visited my mother in the hospital the next day and told her about our conversation.
Mom, would you like to live with us once you're discharged?
Huh?
You'd feel worried if something happened while you were alone at home, right? That's why we want to support you by living together.
No, I don't want to be a burden.
It's okay. We don't see it as a burden.
Even if you're okay with it, what about Tom?
I spoke with Tom yesterday, and he agreed.
Really?
He said we should support you as a family. So, Mom, you don't have to worry about anything.
Emily, thank you. I'm so happy.
Great.
I'm sorry, but I can't live with you.
What? Why?
I'm going to be hospitalized for a while.
What? What do you mean?
What on earth had happened?
Is your condition serious?
Yet, the tests were supposed to be pending. When I asked, my mother looked down.
Actually, I wanted to tell you a little later. Once I had prepared myself mentally, I have terminal cancer.
What?
The doctor said I might only have a year, or maybe even less left.
My mind went blank. The reality that was abruptly presented to me was too shocking to comprehend. My mother has terminal cancer? Only a short time left? I was stunned for a moment.
Emily,
I'm sorry, Mom. I was just taken aback. I never imagined you'd have cancer.
I'm sorry for not telling you sooner. I haven't come to terms with it myself, so I thought I wouldn't be able to talk about it yet.
No, it's okay. I understand you're going through rough time. But it's just...
I started to cry. The mere thought of losing my mother was unbearable.
Emily, thank you for suggesting to live together. Knowing that you and Tom care about me like this makes me very happy.
Mom.
My mother also began to cry. We both cried for a while, and we were finally able to calm ourselves down.
From now on, I'll visit you every day.
You don't have to push yourself.
No, I want to, and I will. If you need anything, please let me know.
Yes, thank you.
I went home that day and immediately told Tom about what happened.
What? Terminal cancer? I can't believe it. Your mother?
My husband was also shocked to hear about my mother's cancer. He was very concerned about me.
You don't need to overwork yourself with household chores while visiting her. I'll take care of as much as I can.
Thank you.
Because my husband said that, I was able to spend time with my mother almost up to the visiting hours every day after work. On my days off, my daughter and husband came with me for the visit, and my mother seemed very happy. I was very grateful that my husband created an environment where I could cherish the limited time left with my mother. I continued to visit her daily. However, day by day, my mother's condition got worse.
Mom, are you okay?
It's getting tougher, dear.
Oh no.
About the inheritance.
Please, don't say that. It will only upset you.
It's important, so let's discuss it.
Okay.
My mother, more serious than ever, started to talk, and I listened. I was shocked to hear about the inheritance she mentioned. Apparently, my mother had assets worth more than $1,300,000. My father had been involved in real estate investment, and after inheriting the properties, my mother continued to invest more heavily in real estate. As a result, she was earning more than what my father had earned.
I'm sorry for not telling you earlier. I want you to inherit the properties I own and continue investing in them.
I remember often being told by my parents to study investment. Although I didn't understand why, they told me it was good to have the knowledge, so I studied. And even gained experience in stock investments. I was glad I had learned and experienced investment. The amount astonished me though.
Remember this. It's very important. Do not casually disclose that you have these assets to people around you. I believe you'll be careful, but only share it with people you truly trust.
Okay, I understand.
The one person I can trust who came to my mind was Tom. I believed there wouldn't be any issues in telling my kind and reliable partner. However, I didn't want to discuss the inheritance just yet. If I were to talk about it, I wanted it to be after my mother had passed away. About a month later, my mother passed away. I'm grateful I could be by her side till the very end, even taking time off from work. I was prepared for her passing, and we had plenty of conversations. After her passing, I, with my husband, arranged the funeral. Month later, I discussed about the inheritance to my husband.
About the inheritance from Mom. It's around $1,300,000.
What?
Tom looked shocked.
Is that true?
Yes.
Seriously, $1,300,000.
Yes, but don't tell anyone else. I'm only telling you this because I trust you.
Of course, I won't tell anyone. I promise.
Thanks.
My heart felt light after telling Tom. Suddenly inheriting such a large amount was overwhelming. So I felt better discussing with my partner about our next steps. However, from that point on, my husband's behavior began to change.
Hey, where did you get that watch?
Oh, I bought it because I thought the design was cool.
I see. It's nice. How much was it?
I think it was around $2,000.
What, $2,000? Why did you buy something so expensive?
It's not really that expensive.
Considering our income, it is.
We have $1,300,000, so it's not a problem, right? LOL.
What?
I was taken aback by my husband's words. He clearly regarded the $1,300,000 I inherited as if it was his.
I've been thinking of saving that money for our daughter's education and our retirement. It's not for buying stuff like this.
As I said that, my husband looked displeased.
What? You won't even let me buy things I want? Do you realize how much I've supported you? Who do you think took care of the household chores while you visited the hospital?
That's...
My husband continued in a domineering manner. From that day on, I would occasionally see him buy luxury brand stuff. He also repeatedly made remarks about quitting his job, wanting to move to a better house, and relying on my income.
You've been acting strange lately. Let's forget about the inheritance for a moment and go back to our normal lives.
There's no way we can do that. It's a waste not to buy what I want when I can.
To be honest, I never expected things to turn out this way. My husband changed because of money. He would occasionally talk about how to make use of the inherited money. He would suggest buying luxury cars or moving to a high-rise apartment, which seemed very nouveau riche. It made me confused.
I've already said that we're not using the money that way. Stop talking about the inheritance.
As I became emotional and shouted, my husband widened his eyes in anger.
Are you kidding me? Do you have any idea how much I've supported you? At least I would have the right to use half of the money. You're planning to use all $1,300,000 by yourself, aren't you? That's why you keep rejecting all my proposals.
What are you talking about? I just want to use it more prudently and carefully.
No, I don't believe you. You're probably planning to spend it behind my back. I will absolutely not allow that.
My husband said, his face turning bright red. Why did he change so much? From then on, we stopped talking to each other for days. Amidst this, my husband took an unthinkable action.
I bought a house to live with my parents and my sister.
What did you just say?
I said, I've purchased a new house. It's a good house where all three families can live. Isn't this a good way to spend the $1,300,000?
Wait a minute, you used my money?
Yes.
Why are you making decisions without me?
Unbelievable. I never imagined he'd buy a house without telling me.
If you don't like it, we can get a divorce. You'll end up penniless and live a lonely and poor life. Haha.
My husband smirked. At that moment, a question arose in my mind. Is it even possible to use such a large amount of money without the consent of the owner? Probably not. I believed no matter what, the situation wouldn't turn against me.
Okay, but you'll regret it.
Like I would, haha.
Tom said, shrugging and laughing. But a month later, he would experience hell. First, I asked my husband which construction company he signed with. It turned out it was a construction company run by my father-in-law's friend.
So you decided to live in the new house with me, haha. Good idea. Don't go against me because of this, okay?
Tom seems to be misunderstanding something, but I'll leave it be for now. I immediately went to the construction company. When I spoke to the person in charge, he showed me a document that was apparently authorized by me. Tom and my in-laws claimed they had my proxy, but I never signed it.
I didn't even know about the house purchase, so this authorization is invalid. If you get her handwriting examination, I can prove it.
The salesperson was shocked to hear about this.
I sincerely apologize for the inconvenience. Even though we heard the story from your father-in-law, it was reckless of us to proceed so quickly. We'll cancel it immediately.
I asked to keep this a secret to my in-laws and my husband that his has been canceled. When I expressed my desire to teach them a lesson, the people at the construction company agreed. After that, I signed a lease for a new apartment and presented my husband with divorce papers.
I realized I can't continue our marriage. Let's get a divorce.
When I said that, Tom looked shocked, but then scoffed.
Are you sure about that? Haha. You'll miss out on living in a $1,300,000 house, you know. Haha.
Yes, I don't mind.
Because you don't own a $1,300,000 house.
I'll take custody of our daughter, and we won't divide our assets. Is that okay?
Hearing this, Tom looked smug and agreed.
Fine, I don't care. After all, I have a new home.
I'm glad I asked the construction company to keep it a secret. The divorce from Tom went smoother than I expected. I then signed the divorce papers, had Tom fill them out too, and left the house with my daughter. My daughter liked Tom, but recently she would say that he got scarier. So, she seemed relieved to be living apart. The apartment we moved into is clean with good security, and the rent isn't even that high. Even if I inherit a large sum of money, I have no intention of changing my standard of living. I wanted to lead a normal life and have my daughter live in a normal household. About a month after moving into the new place, I received an angry call from my ex-husband.
Hello.
Hey, what the hell is going on? Why is the house construction canceled?
Oh, just noticed that now, did you? Haha.
When I explained the situation, my ex-husband was furious.
You must be joking. This can't be happening. It's my house.
What are you talking about? You proceeded with everything using my name because I have assets. From that point on, it became my house. And the proxy was forged. So the whole deal is off.
Don't mess with me. My parents have already left their old home and are living in our apartment. They said they didn't mind for a while, since they'll get to live in a bigger place later.
Why should I care? It's all your fault.
What? Please, Emily, can we pretend the divorce never happened?
That's impossible. I don't want to see you anymore. Make note that this is the last time talking to you. If I ever see you, I'll call the police. Oh, and by the way, I could sue you for unilaterally buying the house, you know, but I won't, so please never get involved with me or our daughter again.
Why?
Tom seemed deeply shocked, but he agreed, presumably not wanting to face a lawsuit. Later, I heard that my former in-laws, perhaps counting on my money, had racked up significant debt by recklessly buying luxury brands and making poor stock market investments. I was dumbfounded when I heard this. However, it's no longer my concern. I have a peaceful life with my daughter. I plan to let her pursue whatever she wishes as she grows. I intend to use the inheritance I received for that purpose, and I also plan to continue my investments to further increase my assets.
From now on, it will be just us living with Mom. So the parasite should leave immediately.
The couple, my older brother and his wife, said this and tried to kick me out. Even my mother started to treat me as a nuisance. Who do they think has been supporting this household's finances? Know your place and be prepared. In my heart, I screamed those words and decided to execute a certain plan. My name is Emily. I'm a 30-year-old remote worker. Currently, I live with my father and mother in our family home. After graduating from university and getting a job, I lived alone. However, the company I worked for was so toxic, and I ended up having mental health issues. As a result, I quit the company after working there for about 4 years and returned to my parents' home. I lived on unemployment benefits for about a year and then began job hunting. But I couldn't find a good company easily. Amidst this, I learned about freelancing, which allows one to work from home. Since I graduated from a science faculty and had initially worked at an engineering company, I began working as a freelance engineer. At first, I accepted a lot of simple tasks to build my portfolio. Though I earned just pocket money, the experience of earning from home was invaluable. I realized I could earn without working for a company or engaging much with people, which boosted my confidence. From then on, I passionately pursued my work from home. Gradually, my income increased, and in just over a year, I was earning as much as a regular salaried worker in a typical company. However, my parents didn't quite understand my work from home setup. I explained to both my father and mother. My father somewhat understood, but my traditional-minded mother, who struggles with unfamiliar concepts, didn't really listen.
How long are you planning on being in the nude? At first, I thought you couldn't help it because you were mentally unwell. But it's been over 2 years now. Please go out and work already.
My mother often yelled at me like that. I explain to her every time that I am working, but she never understands.
You're just playing on the computer. Work means going out and working. If you're going to lie, at least come up with a better one.
How can I make my mother understand? I tried various methods to explain to her. I showed her emails from clients that don't specify the job details, and my salary that get deposited into my online bank. But she dismissed it, saying,
I can't believe such things. It's not some weird product or religion, is it?
No, it's not. Why would you think that? You can see I'm receiving money properly.
That's probably just unemployment benefits. Remember, that won't last forever.
My mother wouldn't listen to anything I said. I considered living on my own, but I hadn't saved up enough money to immediately move out. Amidst this, my father's legs gave out, requiring care. He had to take an early retirement, and our source of income vanished overnight. Dad, are you okay?
Emily, I'm sorry for making you worry. Well, there's still the pension. We should be able to scrape by.
Really? Considering mom's spending habits, it doesn't seem like we'll easily cover our living expenses.
Even if we say that, we'll likely have to live off our savings.
My father looked very tired. He probably was anxious about the future. Thanks to my father's income, I went to college and could live even after returning home from my mentally draining job at the black company. Would it be right to leave my father now and live on my own? My mother was also shaken, suddenly having to care for my father. I decided to stay home and repay my parents for their kindness. Dad, from now on, I'll contribute to the household expenses, so don't worry.
What?
My father's eyes widened in surprise.
Even if you say that, you don't have an income substantial enough to support the household, right?
Don't worry, I'm earning quite a bit now. Saying that, I showed my father the deposit in my online bank account. I thought he'd understand since, unlike my mother, he has shown some understanding the last time I explained.
Wait, Emily, you're earning this much?
Yeah, before I knew it, I started to earn a considerable income.
That's amazing.
So, considering all the times you've taken care of me, I'll take over the household expenses now.
Thank you, Emily. This really helps.
After that, I began covering the cost of my father's care as well as the household expenses. For the living expenses, I arranged to transfer money into my father's bank account. My mother had been using a family card linked to my father's credit card, so I set up a new primary credit card and gave her a new family card linked to mine. Since my father became unable to work, he asked my mother to be as frugal as possible.
Well, why don't we just kick Emily out then? Emily is contributing financially to the household. If we kicked her out, our living situation will become even tougher. Really? You must be joking.
Even as my father explained, my mother seemed reluctant to believe it. But after my father persuaded her, she grudgingly accepted my presence in the house. From then on, I tried to help as much as possible with the household chores and caregiving while working. I felt I was doing my part as a family member, but to my mother it seemed like that was just expected.
You're really not good at managing things, are you? Can't you finish the household chores faster?
Considering I'm balancing work with all of this, delays are inevitable. Remember, I'm here to support.
Are you spinning some weird tale again? I wonder how long you'll keep saying such strange things.
I had given up on getting my mother to understand me. It was enough that my father understood. And so, I continued living that way for about a year. However, a year later, my father fell seriously ill and had to be hospitalized. Concerned about my father, I visited him in the hospital every day. How are you feeling, Dad?
Emily, thank you for coming. I'm not getting better, but if this means I'm not burdening you, maybe it's for the best.
Don't say that. Taking care of you wasn't a burden for me.
Still, it must have been tough dealing with your mother who doesn't understand you.
Well, that's. Yes. The rift between my mother and me deepened as the year went on. I had been living in my parents' house for my father's sake, but it was increasingly challenging. But don't worry, I'll support both you and Mom. No matter how strained my relationship with my mother became, I wanted to stay with her as long as I could. After all, she had cooked for me and made my lunch boxes when I was a student. However, an incident shattered my resolve in an instant.
Tom, you finally came! Sorry I'm late, Mom. Canceling my apartment lease took a while.
Hello, it's been a while.
Thank you for coming, Catherine.
Wait, what are you and Catherine doing here? As I hurriedly approached the two of them, my brother and his wife gave me cold stares.
From today, we'll be living in this house too.
What?
Mom has been feeling anxious. She said it's tough for her to live with just you, especially without Dad around.
You've got to be kidding. I looked toward my mother. She averted her gaze with a stern expression on her face.
Mom, now that we're here, you don't have to worry anymore.
We'll make sure to properly educate Emily.
Thank you, both of you. Emily, you better start working seriously, or else we'll kick you out of this house.
They're treating me like a need again. Summoning my brother and his wife. Has my mother's misunderstanding really gone this far? My brother graduated from a prestigious university and got a job at a large corporation. Considering his age, he's probably earning a decent amount. Well, not to boast, but I earn quite a bit, and when it comes to income, I believe I earn considerably more than my brother. But wouldn't his salary be enough to cover the living expenses even if I weren't here? That's what I thought. And so began the unwelcome cohabitation with my brother, his wife, and my mother. Hey, Emily, how long are you going to sleep? My sister-in-law was banging loudly on my room door. I'm already awake. It was 8 in the morning, but I had already been up for a while and was working. I found it productive to start early. What? If you're awake, you should have said so earlier. Come on, make breakfast now. Wait, am I supposed to make breakfast for everyone? Everyone should just eat whatever they want for breakfast. I work from home, and both my mother and sister-in-law are housewives in our home. So the sister-in-law, being the wife, could make breakfast for my brother who goes to the office. Why are you acting so spoiled? It's obvious, right? Didn't I tell you? I'm going to educate you properly. I felt arguing would be futile, so I quickly made and served breakfast. My brother, sister-in-law, and mother looked at the breakfast I prepared and sighed.
You expect me to go to work after eating this?
You really are the hopeless.
With this, you'll never be a suitable bride.
What I prepared was a plate-like breakfast with scrambled eggs, lettuce salad, buttered toast, and grilled sausages. I thought it was a decent breakfast, but I wondered what was wrong with it. Then you don't have to eat it. Upon hearing that, the three of them widened their eyes in anger.
What's with that attitude?
You're unemployed and yet so audacious.
Really, this child is beyond help. After breakfast, you have to clean the floors, the bath, and the toilet.
Wait a minute. I have work. I can't do all that.
Huh? Work? Seriously?
Just as Mom says, right?
What kind of work could an unemployed person like you have? Do you really think you can keep up such a ridiculous lie? This is why I can't deal with the less educated.
My brother and sister-in-law wouldn't believe what I said and bombarded me with harsh words. My brother has always looked down on me. That's probably why he takes my mother's words at face value and mocks me like he did in the past. I don't really care about that, but if this continues, they'll take away my work time. I went to my room, packed my laptop into my bag, and left the house.
Hey, where are you going?
I heard my brother shouting, but I ignored him and ran out. Then, I went to my father's hospital room.
What happened, Emily? You're out of breath.
I explained the situation to my father. Then, my father looked flabbergasted.
I see. So they did that. I'm sorry, Emily. You can leave the house without any concerns.
But
If Tom is there, your mother is probably satisfied. You won't be happy in the environment. I want both of my children to be happy. So don't worry about your parents and live as you wish. You've supported your mother and me more than enough.
Dad, I made up my mind to leave the house after hearing my father's words. After finishing my work in my father's hospital room, I returned home in the evening. There, my mother, brother, and sister-in-law were waiting for me, looking furious.
Where the hell were you?
What about your work, brother?
I took a day off because your behavior.
Oh, really? Taking the day off just for that? Isn't that too irresponsible? As I thought this, my brother and his wife said the following.
You should leave.
Huh?
From now on, it's just going to be us living with mom. So the parasite like you should leave quickly.
We have no obligation to support a lazy person like you. The couple said this, trying to drive me out.
I'm at my limit too. How long do you intend to leech off your parents? Especially when your father is hospitalized.
My mother also joined them in treating me as an unwanted person. Who do they think has been supporting this household's finances all this time? Despite the tough times with my father's hospitalization, my mother still manages to buy luxury brand goods once a month. Even after being told by my father to be frugal, they really are irresponsible parents. I was furious at my mother and brother's family for treating me like an outsider and not listening to a single word I say. Know your place and be prepared. In my mind, I shouted that and decided to execute a certain plan. The first step was to transfer all the money from the account linked to my mother's card to another account. Once that account hits zero, she won't be able to use her card and will surely panic. I also transferred all the money intended for living expenses from my father's account to another account of mine. As for my father's medical expenses, I ensured they would be deducted from another account he has, one my mother doesn't know about. This way, my brother and his wife will have to shoulder all of my mother's living and frivolous expenses. I don't know how much my brother earns, but I'm sure they'll struggle. After completing all these procedures, I packed my bags. Well, I'll be leaving then. When I said that one day, my mother and my brother and his wife were shocked. Despite their constant sarcasm and insults, they probably thought I wouldn't leave since I stayed in the house for a few more days. But when they realized I was leaving, all three of them smirked and laughed.
Finally decided to leave. You really was such a troublesome grandchild. Don't ever think of coming back.
Even if you do come back, we won't let you in. My family continued to insult me until the very end. I won't be coming back, of course. So, make sure you never come asking for my help. Upon hearing that, the three of them burst into laughter. I wonder if they can keep laughing after I'm with a smile. I left my family home, and I rented an affordable apartment and began living on my own. I was amazed at how peaceful and quiet life could be without my mother. My work was progressing smoothly, and I enjoyed spending my time however I wanted without anyone bothering me. About a month later, I received a call from my brother. Expecting this, I answered the phone with a smirk. Hello? What's up? It's rare for you to call me.
Is it true that you were the one covering all the living expenses and mom's leisure costs?
It seems he heard from our father. Yes, it's true. What about it?
Why didn't you tell me?
I always mentioned I was working. Wasn't it you who chose not to listen? You just assumed I was unemployed, didn't you?
Well, because Mom says so.
Then, it's not my fault, right?
Don't joke with me. Mom charged $3,000 on her credit card. And I heard that the monthly utilities and water bills were all paid from the money deposited into Dad's account. But there wasn't a single dollar in it.
I used to deposit money for that. But since I no longer live there, I stopped transferring funds.
What? Transfer the money right now.
Excuse me? What are you saying?
Transfer the money as you used to.
I told you not to rely on me, remember? Who was laughing out loud at that time? Besides, you're working for a big corporation, right? Shouldn't you be able to handle living expenses?
I got fired.
What? Fired?
I made a mistake that caused a significant loss for the company, and they fired me.
Oh, really? Was that before you came back home? My brother fell silent. He probably realized I had hit the mark. That's why he decided to move back to our parents' house where he wouldn't have to pay rent. He probably assumed he could live off of our father's pension and severance pay. From my brother's perspective, since I, who was labeled as an employee, stayed at home for a long time, he probably thought the household had plenty of money. He must have been shocked to discover that his unemployed younger sister was the one who supported the family. And this was the same for both his wife and our mother.
Please, we don't have any savings, and we can't make ends meet. Emily, please, after what happened, your father is angry and said he won't contribute any money to the household other than his medical bills. At this rate, we'll all starve to death.
I don't care about that. All of you are healthy. Go work. Stop being so spoiled. Just figure out your own lives. When I yelled at them like that, I heard their startled gasps over the phone. I'm going to hang up now and block your numbers. Like I said when I left the house, please don't rely on me. Goodbye.
Wait!
After that, I severed ties with my brother, his wife, and my mother. My father decided to divorce my mother, and through the lawyer, has requested the divorce. He changed his hospital so as not to see my mother and her group. Thanks to that, I can visit my father in the hospital. Rumor has it that after being kicked out of the family home by my father, my brother, his wife, and my mother moved into the crumpled apartment, and they all took part-time jobs to repay their debts. But my mother, having been a stay-at-home mom for so long, was sternly reprimanded by her superior and quickly quit. My brother, proud of his higher education, didn't like being instructed by younger high school graduates and seems to have quit his job right away. Apparently, they all ended up relying on my brother's wife's part-time earnings, but she reached her limit with the situation and seemed to have run away one day. So now, my brother and mother are just scrapping by with day-to-day part-time jobs. However, my mother's habit of overspending hasn't changed, and the debt is said to be increasing. At this rate, they might both end up somewhere due to the debt, but it's none of my concern anymore. I'm still working hard in my comfortable room. My money keeps accumulating, so I'm thinking of venturing into investments and increasing my assets. I also plan to visit my father every day, cherishing the time we have together.
Those old pests who don't do housework should just leave, you know? The eldest son's wife tried to drive us out of the house with that remark. We had reached our limit and made a decision. So, shall we move out now? Because my husband said that, I agreed too. The next day, as we were relaxing in a hotel, we received a barrage of calls from the eldest son's wife. But we no longer felt obliged to pick up. It kept ringing, which was annoying, so I blocked the calls. My name is Emily, a 58-year-old housewife. I've been married to my husband for 34 years. We have a son and a daughter, both of whom have grown up and are now working professionals. Our daughter is 30 and our son is 27. Our daughter is already married, has her own family, and is busy raising a 3-year-old boy. She brings our grandson to visit regularly, and he's so adorable, providing us with much joy. On the other hand, our son Tom had been working hard since graduating from college, but due to workplace harassment from his boss, he quit his job and returned to our home for a while. He took about a year off for recovery and is currently working part-time. We considered letting him live alone, but we were worried he might relapse. And even though he's part-timing, we hope he can save up for the future, so we allow him to live at home. Our eldest son looked really distressed when he was suffering from the harassment, but now he's smiling more, and both my husband and I are relieved. He looks so happy playing with the nephew our daughter brings over. We think he'll be a great father when he has his own children. As I was thinking about all this, our eldest son informed us that he was offered a full-time position at his part-time job. Well, the salary isn't much different from when I was part-timing, but the benefits are much better. That's good to hear. Don't push yourself too hard. Even if you become a full-time employee, you'll continue to live here, right? Well, actually, I have a girlfriend and we're thinking of moving in together. What? We were shocked as our eldest son suddenly mentioned this. He had never talked about having a girlfriend before. Is that so? If that's what you want, I think it's fine. Yeah, Tom should be okay now. He's only 27 and this is probably the most enjoyable time of his life, so he should enjoy both love and work. Thank you, Dad and Mom. And so our eldest son moved out of our home and started living with his girlfriend. Since then, he visits us regularly and always seems happy, sharing stories of his life with her. We were happy to see him, who had been through a lot, finally find happiness. And after 2 years of dating, he decided to marry her. Both my husband and I were overjoyed when we heard the news of their marriage. They told us they would soon come to give their formal marriage greetings, so we eagerly awaited the chance to meet our son's fiancée. A week after hearing about the engagement, our eldest son came with his fiancée. Nice to meet you, my name is Catherine. Catherine had a refined aura about her and was truly charming. Thank you for coming. We have some delicious snacks. Let's all enjoy them together. Wow, thank you so much. She had a wonderful smile and gave a bright, positive impression. We all chatted happily and asked the couple various questions about their relationship. Tom and Catherine met at work, and apparently they were colleagues who joined the company at the same time. We were of the same age and joined the company at the same time, so I felt a connection and we talked a lot. We started dating quickly, and when I became a full-time employee, that became the trigger for us to move in together. Why did you decide to get married? I think a big reason is that I wanted to get married in my 20s. I also want children. Tom always shows me pictures of his nephew, you know. Oh, really? The discussion about the marriage proceeded in a friendly atmosphere. Catherine seemed like a good person, and I felt relieved. After Tom and Catherine left, I talked to my husband, and he also had a good impression of her. However, we never imagined at that time that she might be hiding an unthinkable true nature. Later on, after both families met, Tom and Catherine got married. While we were still immersed in the afterglow of the wedding ceremony, we heard some concerning news. It was about Catherine quitting her job. According to Tom, even though he became a full-time employee, his salary wasn't much different from when he was a part-timer. So it would probably be challenging to support the living expenses for two adults with that salary. However, it seemed that becoming a full-time housewife was Catherine's dream. Hearing this from Tom, neither my husband nor I felt we could say much against it. Well, if both of you are okay with it, then it's fine, but Tom, just make sure you don't overdo it, okay? Remember, you once suffered mentally from pushing yourself too hard. I know, I'll make sure to consult if anything happens. We were quite concerned, but we decided to trust our eldest son for the time being. A year has passed since then. Our eldest son would return home for the Obon festival and New Year holidays, but his wife never came. My husband and I didn't want to force her to come, but we wished she would show up with our son at least once. According to our eldest son, his wife prioritizes going to her own parents' home and shows no intention of visiting us. Is she taking care of the household properly? Yeah, well, but most of the meals are hastily prepared. I'm grateful that she prepares something, but I was a bit taken aback when I saw many empty boxes from store-bought side dishes in the trash. What's more, she hides it and says, I worked hard and cooked a lot today. So I couldn't point out that she just transferred the store-bought side dishes to plates. Oh, is that so? If it's just store-bought side dishes, I'd be concerned about the salt content, and it would also be more expensive. It's not like your salary has increased or anything, right? No, not really. I'm doing overtime to try and increase it a bit. Then wouldn't it become as challenging as it was in the past? No, but unlike before, I don't have any mean superiors, and it's a good work environment, so I guess that's okay. Though continuous overtime does physically drain me. I see. My husband and I were very worried. Could you at least ask her to show her face here once? I want to have a proper conversation with her. Understood. I'll bring her next time. About 2 weeks later, Tom brought Catherine home. It had been more than a year since we last met her at their wedding. My husband and I were surprised to see Catherine after such a long time. She looked completely different from the modest demeanor she had before marriage, with brightly dyed hair and flashy makeup. Moreover, her clothes were flashy and seemed expensive. I wondered where they were getting that kind of money. It's been a while, Catherine. Yes, long time no see. Catherine seemed less friendly than before. Thank you for coming today. It's nothing. We all had a conversation while eating the meal I prepared. How's married life? It's been a year. Any challenges? Not really. Well, I wish Tom would earn a bit more though. Both my husband and I frowned upon hearing such a remark from Catherine right off the bat. Catherine, you're young, so I think it would be good if you could work and contribute to the income too. When I said that, Catherine sighed. I got married because I wanted to be a full-time housewife, and it's not like I'm living extravagantly or anything. Is that so? Those clothes of yours look expensive though. It's not that much really. I see. Although she said so, she didn't disclose the actual price. In the end, we couldn't get much information and she didn't seem to consider our opinions. And then Tom and Catherine left. A few months later, we received a call from Tom. Hello, Tom. It's been a while. Have you been well since then? Sorry, Mom. I've been feeling a bit under the weather. What? Are you okay? Turns out I need to be hospitalized. Shockingly, Tom had become malnourished and needed hospitalization. When my husband and I saw him, after a long time, he looked extremely frail and pale. How did this happen? The thing is, Catherine lost money in investments and we got into debt. To make up for that, I worked long overtime hours daily and it affected my health. Because the debt was significant, Catherine reduced the amount of food we had. Oh no! I can't believe Tom and Catherine's situation has gotten this bad in just a few months. Hi, mother-in-law, father-in-law. Catherine seemed to have left the room briefly and returned shortly after we arrived for the visit. But she didn't have the flashy appearance from before. Her hair was back to black and her clothes were subdued. You've been through a lot. I'm sorry I made Tom go through so much. Catherine seems genuinely remorseful. What are you going to do now? If you keep pushing yourself to the point of hospitalization, you might eventually lose your life. Mom, Dad, I have a favor to ask. Can we live with you at home until we finish repaying the debt? I also humbly ask this of you. Tom, Catherine, my husband and I had no other option. Tom's life was at risk, so we permitted them to live with us, and they began living together after Tom was discharged from the hospital. Tom made sure not to overwork and came home on time every day, and Catherine began working part-time to repay the debt. However, it seemed like it would take a long time to repay the debt completely. This was because the debt Catherine had accumulated amounted to $33,000. Hearing that figure, my husband and I were shocked. It would probably be difficult for just Tom and Catherine to repay the debt. Therefore, we decided to give them $2,500 every month to help with the repayments. This way, they could repay it in about 2 years, and we hoped they would save up some money during that time. However, we would later realize that this was a mistake on our part. About 2 months after giving money to Tom and Catherine quit her part-time job first. Huh? What happened, Catherine? Weren't you supposed to be at your part-time job today? I quit. It was kind of tiring. What? Catherine, my son's wife, would just laze around at home all the time. When I mentioned this to Tom, he seemed very awkward about it. I've tried talking to her about it. She says she feels sick, but she told me she'd try to save money in exchange and ask for my understanding. You're kidding. My husband and I were not convinced. But if we kick them out now, Tom would have a hard time again. However, Catherine became more and more brazen, using a lot of the groceries we had stocked up, eating snacks on her own, and not listening when I admonished her. Amidst all this, I fell down the stairs and hurt my back. I needed regular doctor visits, making me unable to do household chores. Catherine, I'm sorry to ask, but could you help with the housework? See, it's a good thing I've been staying at home, isn't it? Catherine said with a tone implying she was doing us a favor. Housework is so tedious. It's such a hassle with an old lady around who doesn't do anything. Throughout the day, she kept saying such things, pushing me to my mental limits. Catherine, it seems like you're saying some harsh things to my wife. She's hurt her back and can't do household chores, so please don't be too hard on her. My husband spoke to Catherine in that manner, concerned about me. But Catherine lashed out at my husband too. You will be retiring soon and will be home all the time, right? Yet, he doesn't do any housework, does he? You lecture me even though you don't do anything around the house. Could you please not? By the way, this house will eventually become Tom's, won't it? So, why don't you leave already? What? I'm saying old folks who don't do chores should get out. Catherine tried to kick us out of our own house. We had reached our limit and made a decision. Let's move out right now then. When my husband said that, I agreed. We quickly started packing our things. Just then, Tom, who had finished his work, came home. What? Mom, what are you guys doing? We're leaving this place. What do you mean? Asked Catherine. Catherine, what's going on? I just said that since you all blame me, those who don't do chores should leave. What are you talking about? This is my parents' house. But eventually it will be your house, right? So it's okay if just the two of us live here, isn't it? Well, what are you saying? Catherine kept spouting nonsensical arguments and the conversation wasn't getting anywhere. My husband and I didn't want to deal with her anymore. So we packed up some essentials and left the house. We rented a room in a business hotel and decided to spend some quality time together, planning to search for a new place tomorrow. The next day, as we were relaxing in the hotel, we received numerous calls from Catherine. Why is she calling us so much? Isn't it the beginning of the month today? Oh, that makes sense. The start of the month is when we usually give money to Tom and Catherine. She probably called to remind us about it, but we no longer felt obligated to do so. I adjusted some settings on my smartphone and put it in my bag. It suddenly stopped ringing. I got tired of it ringing constantly, so I blocked her. Hearing this, my husband laughed. Should we go look for a room then? Yes, let's. We had actually been planning to sell that house soon anyway. The house was quite old, and we had been considering moving to a more manageable sized apartment suitable for the two of us in our retirement years. All that happened was that the timing got accelerated because of Catherine. We found a nice apartment near where our eldest daughter's family lived. After viewing the place and finding it very comfortable, we quickly signed a contract. We then contacted Tom at a time when Catherine wasn't around and went to retrieve our remaining belongings. During this, we had a proper conversation with Tom. We informed him about our decision to sell the house and that we wouldn't be involved with Catherine anymore. We also told him that we couldn't provide financial support and that if he didn't want to face further hardships, he should consider divorcing Catherine. Tom seemed to have finally made up his mind due to this incident and seemed determined to break up with Catherine. He packed his things and left the house with us. For now, he stored his stuff in our new place and planned to rent a room for himself. Apparently, Catherine found the divorce papers we left in the empty house, and she bombarded Tom with angry calls. When he answered, he told her, "I don't want to trouble my parents any further, and I don't want to suffer because of your debts." It seems he informed her about his decision to get a divorce. After that, he hired a lawyer and initiated divorce proceedings. Catherine couldn't afford the legal fees, so she reluctantly agreed to the divorce. Of course, since the house was up for sale, we asked Catherine to leave immediately. However, she made another mess afterward. It seems she returned to her parents' home and lied to them. Believing her, her parents confronted Tom at his workplace. He calmly explained the reasons for the divorce and her debt issues. He also revealed that we had been giving her $2,500 monthly to help with her debts. Her parents, shocked and ashamed, apologized to Tom and later contacted us to apologize as well. We later met them in person and they returned the money we had given over the months. We will keep an eye on our good-for-nothing daughter and make sure she repays her debts. I deeply apologize for the disgraceful actions. The parents apologized sincerely. We felt sorry that such diligent parents raised such a child, but we were truly relieved that we got our money back. Catherine seems to be working from dawn to dusk under the watchful eyes of her parents to repay the debts. Now that Tom is free from debt, he has rented a place for himself and started living alone. He's been working hard and he recently got a promotion. My husband and I are living comfortably in our new home, and our eldest daughter, who lives nearby, often brings her children over for visits. We are much closer to our eldest daughter's family than before, and the thought of watching our grandchildren grow up right before our eyes fills us with joy. We hope to live happy days ahead, maintaining close ties with our family.
My name is Emily and I'm 40 years old. I've been married to my husband Tom, who was my coworker and is the same age as me, for 10 years. Now I work at a different branch office than Tom, but we used to be in the same department. He is a very responsible person and was admired by his subordinates. He can be a bit showy and seems to not want to show his weakness to others. He was a confident and very assertive man. His work ethic is highly regarded by his superiors, and he is expected to rise through the ranks without any issues. On the other hand, I am a more understated type and don't stand out much. Given that Tom and I have completely opposite personalities, I was genuinely surprised when he passionately pursued me. After dating for 2 years, Tom proposed me with a large bouquet of roses. I had never been loved by a man like this before, so I immediately accepted his proposal. I was so excited about the wonderful days ahead and couldn't wait to start our life together. However, what awaited me was living with my in-laws. There was no prior discussion about it, and I initially wanted to refuse, but Tom was very insistent on living together. Don't worry, my parents are very understanding. Seeing how passionately Tom spoke about how much his parents were looking forward to living with me, I couldn't say no. So, for the past 10 years, I've been living with his parents in their family home. Living there was something I could never have imagined when we first got married. Emily, you forgot to clean the entrance again, didn't you? As soon as finished preparing breakfast for everyone, the nagging from my mother-in-law begins. It's a daily ritual. I'm sorry. You'd always apologize, but it's just worse. If you understand, then do it right now. Even though I have work coming up, I'm treated like a servant every morning. Since I started living with my in-laws 10 years ago, I've been forced to wake up at 5 a.m. to prepare breakfast and clean. She should do it herself since it's her house. My mother-in-law is a housewife, so she should have time to be at home, yet she doesn't do any housework. I quickly finish the morning chores, go to work, and immediately start preparing dinner when I get home. By the time I get to my bedroom, I'm so exhausted I practically pass out. This routine has taken its toll, and there are many days when I'm not feeling well. It must be due to stress. Make sure you clean properly. We don't want the neighbors to think we are sloppy. My mother-in-law is relaxing in the living room, eating the breakfast I prepared. Finish up quickly or I'll be late for work. Despite seeing how I'm treated, Tom has never once defended me. My father-in-law pretends not to notice, hiding behind his newspaper. Since moving into my in-laws' house, I've faced constant harassment. This stress has caused me to lose a lot of weight, and I now look unhealthy. You look so skinny and unsightly. It's because of that body that you can't bear and hair. Due to my sudden weight loss, I stopped menstruating and couldn't get pregnant. Even though this happened because of my mother-in-law, she keeps blaming me for it. Before I got married, I used to take good care of my appearance and was healthy. Now there's hardly a trace of that left. I get depressed because of the stress from the constant harassment and the shocking reflection I see in the mirror. I've completely became submissive to my mother-in-law. I've lost all motivation and don't even feel like escaping from this house. Then I received some devastating news. Due to an accident, my father suddenly passed away. Because stating my desire to visit my parents' home would result in a backlash from my mother-in-law and husband, I hadn't visited in a long time. Receiving the news of my father's death filled me with deep regret that I hadn't seen him more often. My parents' home is only about an hour's drive from my in-laws. Given the short distance, I asked my mother-in-law and husband if they'd come to my father's funeral. There's a funeral for my father. Yes, we are not going. Just keep it to immediate family. They cut me off before I could even finish speaking. I never imagined they could be this heartless. Trembling with anger and sadness, all I could reply was, I understand. Many people attended my father's funeral. My father ran his own business and had connection with many people. Seeing everyone at the funeral in tears, I realized just how much my father was loved. Emily, it's been so long, but why have you lost so much weight? After not seeing me for a while, my mother was shocked by my emaciated appearance. Well, it's just been a bit tough. Is it an illness? I couldn't bear to lose you too. My mother seemed to think I have some disease and began to cry. Given my father's recent passing, her reaction was understandable. It's not an illness, please don't worry. I tried to calm my distressed mother and we took a break in a waiting room. If it's not illness, then what happened? Memories of the exchanges with my mother-in-law and Tom come flooding back. Even after learning about my father's death, they didn't offer a single word of comfort. Feeling a growing anger inside, I decided to tell my mother about my life at the in-laws. The truth is, I'm being harassed by my in-laws. It's just been draining me. As I spoke, looking down, my mother peered into my face with concern. I'm glad it's not an illness, but this isn't any less worrisome. Is that why you haven't been visiting often? Yes. As I nodded, my mother handed me a piece of paper. Check this out for yourself and think carefully about what comes next. When I looked at the paper my mother handed to me, it turns out to be my father's will. Being meticulous in nature, my father had prepared a will just in case something happened. It included details about inheritance. Inheriting $1,400,000. $1,400,000? It's written right there. How you use it is up to you. The sum was so large, I was left wide-eyed. At the same time, I harbored the hope of terminating the cohabitation. I can build a house and leave the in-laws' place immediately. Thanks to the inheritance left by my father, my future looked brighter. I returned to my in-laws' home and continued my daily chores as usual. On days when I have plans, the house tends to get messier than usual. Without anyone to clean, it's inevitable. As I carried on with my chores, I thought about the $1,400,000 I had inherited from my father. Though I had animosity towards my mother-in-law, I still wanted to be with Tom. I decided to be honest about the large inheritance and proposed leaving the in-laws' home. There's something I need to talk about. I began the conversation when it was just the two of us, after the in-laws had gone to bed. What is it? Well, it's about my father. Actually, I'm going to inherit his legacy. Oh, how much? The thing is, it's $1,400,000. When I revealed the amount, Tom seemed dumbfounded, likely due to the staggering sum. Wait, what did you say? I said, 1 million. Once Tom grasped what I said, he was overjoyed. He left that much for you. That's incredible. About how to use it, taking advantage of Tom's good mood, I broached the main topic. However, before I could elaborate further, Tom started saying something unimaginable. Then, we have to transfer that money to my mom's account right away. I didn't understand what my husband meant. It was so nonsensical, I thought he was joking. Wait, why? It's my inheritance. That's not how it works. I replied with a laugh, but my husband slammed the table. What are you joking about? Money inherited by the wife belongs to my mom, right? He probably didn't even realize he was saying something absurd. Seeing the seriousness in his eyes, I felt scared. I'm sorry, I don't really understand what you're saying. All I wanted was to discuss building a house for just the two of us. My husband wouldn't let me talk about it and insisted the inheritance was his mother's. That day, I was so shocked that I couldn't sleep easily. The next morning, while I was preparing breakfast, my husband and mother-in-law approached me with angry expressions. "Emily, I heard about it. You inherited $1,400,000, but you won't give it to me. What do you think you're doing as a daughter-in-law?" My mother-in-law had already heard about the inheritance from my husband. "But the person who inherited it is me. Just transfer it to my parents' account now without arguing. The money from the daughter-in-law is our money, isn't it?" The two seemed intent on forcibly obtaining the inheritance. No matter how much I resisted, they just kept accusing me. Thinking resistance was futile, I felt silent. Then my husband showed me a piece of paper. "You're getting carried away because you got some money. What's with this attitude when I'm supporting you? If you don't change your mind, it's divorce." The paper he had was a divorce form. "I've already signed it. Take this and go back to your parents' home. If you apologize properly, I might reconsider the divorce." I received the divorce form with all of my husband's sections filled out. Staring at the divorce form, memories flooded back. I was never supported in this house. I paid the same amount for living expenses as my husband did, and I was in charge of all the housework. Then never took care of me. And yet, the two of them always looked down on me. Now they were even trying to take my father's money. If I stayed here, I might be pressured into handing over the inheritance. But this money was left to me by my father. Being told to return home, I saw it as an opportunity. With the pre-filled divorce form, I now have the power to decide my future. I swore never to give them my father's inheritance and made a decision. That day after work, I returned to my parents' home. "I'm home." "Welcome back. Somehow I felt you might come back soon." My mother smiled warmly, welcoming my weary self. On the table was mother's home-cooked meal. I couldn't remember the last time I had someone else cooking. Taking a bite of the warm meal, tears came to my eyes from its delicious taste. "Did you tell your husband about the inheritance?" "Yeah, and that's where things got complicated. I told my mother everything that my husband and mother-in-law had said to me. My mother was taken aback by the shocking content of the conversation. The inheritance is yours, and you decide how to live your life from now on." Tears streamed down my face as my mother gently stroked my shoulder. After a week at my parents' home, I decided to return to my in-laws' place. "Well, then, I'm off. Take care." I wasn't afraid to return to that house anymore. With a refreshed spirit, I headed back to my in-laws. Finally decided to come back? Have you reflected on your actions? When I returned to my in-laws, both my husband and mother-in-law were there, arms crossed, waiting for me. "Yes, I'm sorry. Please let me live here again." I expressed an apology that was merely on the surface. Hearing this, my mother-in-law smirked. "In that case, hand over the inheritance quickly." Actually, the inheritance procedure is taking a while. It hasn't reached me yet. It's a complicated process, so it might take another 6 months or more. Is it going to take that long? Well, fine. Both my mother-in-law and husband seemed satisfied, thinking I would obediently hand over the inheritance. However, they continued to nag me about the week I spent at my parents' home. "This house is a mess because you're not doing your duties as a daughter-in-law. Fix this immediately." The in-laws' house, which I hadn't seen in a week, was extremely dirty and unsanitary. I think it's a talent to make it this messy in such a short period. Understood. The old me would have been devastated seeing the house in this state, but now it's different. Whether I'm bullied by my mother-in-law or forced to do tough housework, it doesn't bother me anymore. I did the household chores as instructed by my mother-in-law. 10 months later, today was my mother-in-law's birthday. I'm off then, make sure you keep the house clean. My mother-in-law always went on a trip for her birthday. Of course, she never took me along. By the way, have you received the inheritance yet? It's expected to come in today. Perfect timing. That $1,400,000 is a gift for Mom. Make sure you transfer it to her account before we return. It can't be just a coincidence that the inheritance would come in on my mother-in-law's birthday. My husband didn't catch my lie. Without responding further, I said, "Take care," with a smile, seeing the three of them off. Once they were out of sight, I began to execute my plan. I had been waiting for this day for a long time. They will undoubtedly be shocked when they return from their trip. However, that's no longer my concern. I quickly packed my things and left the in-laws' home. Wow, this is amazing! I was moving my belongings into my new house. In fact, I had built this house with my father's inheritance. I'm so happy to live in such a beautiful house. I had decided to call my mother from my family home to live with me. The fact that I don't have to worry about them anymore makes me truly happy. I sank into the plush sofa, feeling completely content. Today, I celebrated my new home with my mother. We called a chef to our house and spent a luxurious day. The next evening, I received a call from my husband. "Hey, what's going on?" He probably couldn't comprehend the situation since all my belongings were gone when he returned home. "I won't be returning there. Goodbye." I was about to hang up without wanting to talk to my husband when I heard my mother-in-law shouting from the other end. "What are you thinking as a daughter-in-law? Where are you now?" I cannot answer that. You told me to clean the house, so I tidied up my things. This isn't a funny joke, and you didn't transfer the inheritance. How many times do I have to say that a daughter-in-law's money is mine? Excuse me? I'm single, you know. When I responded that way, the previously shouting mother-in-law suddenly went silent. Single? Well, technically divorced. I was handed the divorce papers, so I submitted them. We're now strangers. Goodbye. Saying so, I hung up the phone. I couldn't stop laughing, imagining the stunned look on my mother-in-law's face. My heart felt so light, knowing I had no ties with that family. After that, my ex-husband called me several times. Whenever I had the time, I would pick up and let the insults from him and my ex-mother-in-law wash over me. I recorded all those calls. I decided to consult with the police using those recordings. Harassment from an ex-spouse isn't uncommon. We'll issue a warning before anything dangerous happens. Fortunately, the police responded promptly and went to warn my former in-laws. Just the police visiting would have been damaging enough for my image-conscious ex-in-laws. On top of that, a colleague of my ex-husband from the neighborhood saw the police visit. As my ex-husband was a noticeable figure in his company, the rumors spread rapidly. Then, colleagues and subordinates who weren't fond of my ex-husband exaggerated the story, starting to spread negative rumors about him. Eventually, the gossip even reached the department I was affiliated with. I heard the police came by. I'm already divorced, so I don't really know. Wait, you're divorced? Yes, the constant harassment from my mother-in-law and my husband's verbal abuse were too much. I said loudly enough for others around to hear. This caused the gossip-loving employees to spread the rumor even further. It didn't take long for these rumors to reach my ex-husband's boss. You have quite some negative rumors going around. Huh? I'm not sure what you're referring to. I despise men who cannot treasure their wives. Plus, these rumors are bad for our reputation. Thus, I've decided to transfer you. The transfer order given to my ex-husband was harsh. Wait, this place is... It was a branch with the poorest performance in a very remote area. There was nothing entertaining nearby, and it's called an island on land. You understand what being sent here means, right? Everything Tom had built up to now had crumbled, and there would be no chance for a promotion in the future. Tom, unable to refuse the order, moved to the countryside. As for my ex-mother-in-law, she was probably shocked by the decrease in her son's status and the fact they couldn't live together anymore. She ended up confined to her home, and it seems she developed depression. She might even have early signs of dementia, often causing havoc at home. The changed ex-mother-in-law is now being desperately cared for by my ex-father-in-law. Even if there's no blood relation, a daughter-in-law is still a precious family member. The ex-in-laws got a taste of their own medicine for the continuous harassment they directed at me. I am now living happily with my mother. I've started gardening in our spacious yard. If I'd stayed in that house, I would have never discovered such a wonderful hobby. Having a hobby has reinvigorated my spirit. My body, once worn out from stress, is now healthy. I'm so happy I could cut ties with my former in-laws.
Even a couple who have been together for 40 years might not understand everything about each other. It's my lucky day when my husband, of all days on his retirement, decides to bring up divorce. My name is Emily, and I'm 65 years old. I married my husband when I was 25. We were colleagues at the same company back then, and we've been married for 40 years now. Our only daughter, Catherine, is 35 years old. She got married 8 years ago and has since moved out to start her own family. So it's just the two of us living together now. The life of an old couple is mostly monotonous and repetitive, but I think it's not bad to spend each day with small joys. My husband will be retiring soon, and I hope we can enjoy a peaceful life together in our old age. That's what I had hoped for. Although my husband can be a bit dominant, he's a gentle person and speaks very little. We've been married for 40 years. I feel I have played my role as a supportive wife, always following my husband's lead. I quit my job after marrying him and lived modestly as a housewife. At that time, it was the norm, and I never felt anything strange about this life continuing on. Following and trusting my husband was natural for me, almost like a duty. It was purely because I loved him. Perhaps that's why I noticed. I started seeing my husband change over time. I first felt a slight unease on a particular holiday. My husband left early in the morning without saying a word to me. "Oh, are you going out?" Yes. "So early? Do you have an appointment or something?" "No, just going for a walk." "I see. What about breakfast? I've prepared it." "I don't need it. I'll be back late." For some reason, my husband seemed in a hurry and left the house quickly. He was someone who would usually watch movies or read at home during holidays. Leaving the house dressed up decently at 8 in the morning? What on earth was going on? But maybe he just wanted a change of pace and decided to go out alone. At that time, I convinced myself to believe in him. However, from then on, my husband frequently went out on holidays and often didn't return until late at night. He would leave early in the morning and not return until past midnight, even after the last trains had long since stopped running. I wondered where he was and what he was doing. Going out again today? It's been frequent recently. Yeah. Will you be late again? What about dinner? I don't need it. My husband's replies were curt. Moreover, day by day, he started to become colder towards me. Hey, what's with this lousy meal? Lousy? I made your favorite mixed rice, sauteed burdock root, and simmered golden ice snapper. Do you really think a meal this plain can give me energy after a tiring day? It's the same as always. If you want something specific, just tell me and I'll make it. That's not the point. You should be able to guess what I want to eat. He had never raised his voice like that before. In a bad mood, my husband left without touching the meal I prepared and went out to eat alone. Many were the days when I sat alone at the dinner table, tears streaming down my cheeks. There were other signs of change in my husband. I'll be on a business trip next week. A business trip? You've never had one before. It's sudden. Stop it! Don't nag about my work! I didn't mean it like that. I just meant it's unusual, that's all. What do you know about my job? Enough! I'm going to sleep. Saying that, he turned away like a child and headed to the bathroom. Really, there was no need for him to say it like that. After that, my husband avoided eye contact and our conversations as a couple dwindled. I tried to communicate with him multiple times, serving him his favorite dishes or gifting him novels I thought he'd like, but to no avail. Hey, what's been going on with you lately? You've been acting different. Being with you has become a pain for me. Those softly spoken words from my husband stung sharply, and thus the gap between my husband and me grew wider and wider. Then one day, hello? Oh, Catherine! How have you been? I received a rare call from my daughter. Hey, this might sound odd, but how have you and Dad been lately? There was a serious tone in my daughter's voice. Why bring that up all of a sudden? Well, it's a bit difficult to say, but Tom saw Dad walking with a young woman. Tom is Catherine's husband. Come to think of it, his workplace is near my husband's. Has there been any change in Dad recently? I felt pained recalling my husband's recent behavior. Until now, even if he was dominant at home, he wasn't the type to be harsh or say sarcastic things to me. But in the past few months, he seemed like a completely different person, unable to bear my husband's recent words and attitude. I confided everything to my daughter. That's terrible. If you were troubled, you should have told me sooner. I didn't want to show my child the discord between our parents. What are you saying? If you keep shouldering this alone, the stress will knock you down. Her words jolted me. Lately, I haven't been sleeping well at night, and my appetite has diminished. The stress had already taken its toll on me. Catherine, thank you. Don't mention it. More importantly, Dad seems very suspicious. Should we investigate? Upon Catherine's suggestion, I requested a private detective to investigate my husband. I prayed from the depths of my heart. Please let it be my misunderstanding. Please let my husband not betray me. However, the results were damningly clear. My husband had an affair with a woman 30 years younger than himself. They met at a bar he visited for social reasons. He seemed to have started dating the hostess working there about 3 months ago. This timeline coincides with when I started noticing changes in him. I see. So this was the reason. Engaging in adultery with a woman the same age as our daughter? I could only see my husband as a repulsive creature now. He hurts and belittles others, yet he indulges in his pleasures. I can't forgive him. To betray the wife he'd been with for 40 years? My anger surged more than my tears. And so, the fuse for my retaliation was lit. First, I diligently gathered evidence before filing for divorce. With a solid evidence, he won't be able to talk his way out. Now, why not demand his property for emotional distress as well? Thinking this way gave me a bit of energy. Yes, I should divorce such a man quickly and enjoy my freedom on my own. Behind the scenes, I had consulted with a lawyer and was having documents prepared for divorce proceedings and claims for sharing his property when my husband's retirement date approached. Perhaps I should appreciate his years of service on his retirement day. However, somewhere inside of me, I couldn't genuinely say, "Thank you for your hard work." I certainly am grateful for how he supported me financially over the years, but how could I show compassion for a husband who betrayed the wife who stood by him for 40 years? When I confided in my daughter about my dilemma, she suggested, why not hand him the divorce papers on his retirement day? That would surely give you closure. Maybe that's the fitting way to do it. Can I be present during that conversation? Huh? You too, Catherine? Why? Why? Obviously, because I can't forgive that. You're not alone, Mom. Catherine, thank you. And so, with my daughter by my side, I decided to discuss divorce with my husband on the day of his retirement. On the day of his retirement, he briefly made some rounds of greeting and returned home by noon. I couldn't help but notice his overly confident and accomplished demeanor. "Ah, Catherine's here?" "Yes," Catherine responded curtly to her father. Yet, Tom seemed unfazed by this and immediately said to me upon his return, "Emily, we need to talk." "All right, what is it?" It had been a while since we had a proper conversation as husband and wife. A sudden pang of sadness surged through me. What did those 40 years mean to me? "I found someone I love. You're no longer needed. I'll give you $70,000. Leave this house." "Excuse me?" "I'll give you the money. Just get out of my sight. Don't make me repeat myself. I'm going to live here with her, a younger and better woman than you." At this point, our daughter interjected. "Dad, what are you saying?" "It's none of your business. Keep quiet." "Of course it's my business. This isn't something you can decide on your own." The two started to argue. I let out a sigh. Inside, I was silently cheering. The topic I was about to bring up came from him instead. How convenient for me. "Are you saying you want a divorce?" "Yeah, that's right." "Can you explain in detail one more time?" "All right, fine." With that, he began to explain about his affair, how they fell in love, and how they plan to register their marriage as soon as possible after the divorce. It's easier to proceed when he explains it all himself. After listening to everything I said, understood. "So, you admit to the infidelity." Calling it infidelity sounds so dramatic. Are you jealous at this age? Jealousy has nothing to do with this. You just admitted to having a relationship with another woman while still married, right? Alright, let's go with that. Then I will be claiming to share your property for the infidelity. I presented the documents prepared by the lawyer to him, but he seemed surprisingly at ease. I'll pay whatever amount you want. I'm getting a retirement bonus of $130,000. Oh, that's impressive, right? I've devoted more than 40 years to the company. It's only natural. So, this was the reason behind his willingness to pay whatever amount. With a windfall of $130,000, one would indeed feel emboldened. By the way, you'll have to leave this house. What? You see, this house is mine. What? Suddenly his expression changed to one of panic. So, this house was inherited from my parents. Why should I be the one to leave? It seemed that he had completely forgotten the house was in my name. How can you forget something so important? But he was entirely dumbfounded. Never mind. I understand about the divorce. I was planning to bring it up myself, so that's fine. Next to the compensation document, I placed a filled-out divorce paper. No, wait. Please, it was a joke. A joke! Is this what they call a dad joke? How unamusing. A joke? It's a surprise. I just wanted to surprise you. As he was sweating profusely and trying to cover up, I knew it was too late. A surprise? Oh, how delightful. So, am I getting a diamond ring next? Or perhaps tickets for a luxury cruise? And it will all be presented with a bouquet, right? Let's see them now, quickly. Well, what about the affair? Weren't you saying she's going to live here with you? Starting tomorrow, a young woman will live here. You'd be so happy. I've never heard such a surprise. Oh, that was a lie too. You know it was a joke, right? We've been together for 40 years. I couldn't stand his insincerity any longer. Don't take me lightly. I presented all the evidence of his infidelity. Photos of him and the woman getting cozy in public. The two of them entering a hotel, their arms entwined, walking happily together. The pictures said it all. The undeniable truth was there, and Tom had no choice but to accept it. What is this? How did you... You think a wife of 40 years wouldn't notice a change in her husband? Tom fell silent at my words. Perhaps the weight of the word 40 years dawned on him. How did you know? We're married. It's impossible for me not to notice. I've trusted and stood by you for 40 years, but it seems you never really saw me. As I spoke those words, I felt a sting deep within my chest. I'll grant you a divorce, so leave this house right now. It's mine after all. Right now? Yes, I'm not so kind as to let another person live here, especially not a traitor. Wait, isn't it a bit rash to decide on a divorce just like that? What are you talking about? You were the one who brought it up first, weren't you? That's... well, I don't want to complicate things any further. Can you sign quickly? I tapped on the table where the divorce papers lay. Seeing my resolute expression, he probably realized there was no way out. As my daughter and I watched, he silently filled out the divorce papers. How could someone forget that the house they live in is under their wife's name? Could he possibly be going senile? Well, it doesn't matter anymore. After that, we officially divorced. I received the standard amount for alimony, and we properly divided our joint assets, including his retirement pay. The reason I waited until his retirement date to get a divorce was this. I ended up getting a substantial amount of money from the alimony and the division of our shared assets. After kicking out my husband, I had our house demolished and sold the land. The location was great, so a real estate agent was eager to buy it at a good price. Even after deducting the demolition costs, I received a significant amount of money. Perhaps my husband was aware of the market value of this land too. However, he seemed to have overlooked the crucial fact that the house and land were under my name. I changed my mobile number and completely severed ties with my husband. I hope he, now over 65 and alone, can find a place to live without a guarantor, but it's no longer my concern. However, he reached out to our daughter. Hey, Catherine, where's your mother living now? Do you know what she's up to? Why should I tell you? Don't be like that. I'm in trouble right now. Here's what he had to say. After the divorce and struggling to find a place to live, his mistress apparently suggested buying an apartment. Introduced by her to a real estate agent, he was able to purchase 2 apartments at a price much lower than the market value. One for him to live in and the other to rent out for rental income. The salesperson pushed him, saying, "You can get your initial investment back in 5 years, and this room will always be rented out. It won't be vacant. The discounted price is only during this campaign." With that, he decided to invest all of his retirement money into purchasing it. That salesman intended to deceive me from the start. The area has bad security, the train station is far, the roads are narrow and unpopular. There are many vacant rooms, and since the building is old, maintenance costs a lot. It was a shoddy property that no one wanted to buy. Given that he was introduced by his mistress, it's likely she was in cahoots with the salesman. I have no retirement money left, and even if I try to sell this property, it won't sell. He said this with a voice on the verge of tears. Oh, really? Well, Mom is living a carefree life overseas. I wonder if she'll ever come back to Japan. Please stop getting involved with her. She's finally enjoying her life. It's your own doing, right? What goes around comes around. Seeing you makes me realize that I shouldn't do bad things. Goodbye. Catherine said this and hung up the phone. You really went all out with what you said, didn't you? Telling him I'm overseas was a lie. I had to say at least that much to feel satisfied. He was always saying whatever he wanted, and it was unbearable. Now, I don't think he'll contact us anymore. Thank you. I feel relieved. You're welcome. My daughter said that and poured tea into my empty cup. Mom, what are you going to do now? I intend to live freely on my own. Why don't you come live with us? As we were talking, my daughter's husband made such an offer. It's okay. Don't worry about me. Why not, Mom? My husband is even suggesting it himself. Exactly. I'm not saying this out of obligation, but I don't want to intrude on a young couple's life. What are you talking about? There's no need for hesitation between family. My daughter tightly held my hand. I thought I had long since run out of tears, but I realized they were streaming down my cheeks. Thank you. You're still young, Mom. You need to enjoy the rest of your life. The next chapter of my life had just begun. The kindness of my daughter and son-in-law touched me deeply, warming my heart. ever so slightly.